My daughter said my heart surgery could wait. Her promotion brunch was more important. I'm Stefan Kowalski, and that moment changed everything. For 30 years, my children thought I was just another embarrassing immigrant. Broken English, construction worker, the father they hid from colleagues and cropped out of social media photos. They had no idea I speak 5 languages fluently, hold 2 PhDs, and built a multi-million-dollar empire while scrubbing floors. They assumed I was uneducated because I chose manual labor. They were wrong. When Calliope made VP at McKinsey, she threw a celebration at Chicago's Palmer House Hotel. 200 corporate executives, her biggest career moment, and she told me not to come, because I might embarrass her. I came anyway. What happened next shattered everything they believed about success, sacrifice, and the immigrant father they'd spent decades running from. By the end of that night, they'd learned what old country weakness really built. Before I tell you how it unfolded, hit subscribe. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Here's what really happened. Let me start with Monday, September 9th, 2024. My cardiologist, Dr. Patricia Nowak, had scheduled my triple bypass surgery for 6 a.m. at Advocate, Illinois Masonic. Room 4, B17. The procedure cost $127,000, money I had, but my children assumed came from insurance and prayers. The night before, I called Calliope. Cochineer, the surgery is tomorrow morning. Dad, I can't. The Andersons invited me to brunch at the Peninsula. Robert's boss will be there. This could change everything for my career. It's my heart, Calliope. You'll be fine. You're being dramatic, like always. She hung up. I texted Michael. Same response, different excuse. Client meeting. Too important to miss. So I drove myself to the hospital at 5 a.m. Parked my 15-year-old Honda Civic between a BMW and a Mercedes. Signed my own consent forms. Updated my own emergency contacts. When the nurse asked about family, I said, they're busy. The surgery took 6 hours. I woke up alone. But here's what my children didn't know about that morning. While they were posting Instagram stories from their brunches, #blessed, #career goals, I was making a different kind of preparation. I'd been watching them for months, really watching. Calliope would introduce me to her colleagues as my father. He's between jobs, never mentioning I'd paid her Northwestern tuition of $347,000. Cash, no loans. Michael changed the subject whenever friends asked about family. Last month at his company picnic, he told people I was traveling in Europe, when I was actually replacing their water heater for free. They'd moved their family photos to back pages on social media. The ones with me in my work clothes, my Timberland boots, my calloused hands. They kept the graduation photos, themselves in caps and gowns, me carefully cropped out. But there were signs they couldn't hide from me. 2 weeks before my surgery, Calliope brought her laptop to my apartment, left it open while she used the bathroom. I saw her MBA textbook on corporate finance. Chapter 7 had errors, basic calculation mistakes about compound interest and foreign exchange rates. Without thinking, I corrected them in the margins. Perfect English. Advanced mathematical notation. When she returned, she stared at the corrections for a long time. Dad, how do you know this? I read sometimes. But this is graduate-level finance theory. Maybe the book is wrong. She closed the laptop. Fast. But I saw the confusion in her eyes. The second sign came from Michael. He'd been helping me organize my apartment, sorting through old papers. Found a folder marked Property Management. Inside were deeds. 14 rental properties across Chicago. Total current value, $2.3 million. Dad, what is this? Some investments. Investments? You told us you lived paycheck to paycheck? I told you I worked hard. But these are worth what, Michael? He couldn't finish the sentence. His father, the simple construction worker, wasn't supposed to understand real estate investment strategies. Wasn't supposed to own more property than his corporate executive children. I took the folder back, gently. Some things take time to understand. After my surgery, when they finally visited on Wednesday evening, they brought guilt instead of flowers. Dad, you have to understand our position. What position is that, Calliope? We have professional images to maintain. When you show up to company events in those boots, when you speak with that accent, when I embarrass you, it's not personal, it's just complicated. Michael nodded. Maybe it's better if we keep work and family separate. I looked at my daughter. Harvard MBA, 6-figure salary, designer clothes, all built on money earned by a man she was ashamed to claim. I looked at my son, Northwestern graduate, Marketing director. Living in a condo I'd helped him buy, though he'd never told his girlfriend where the down payment came from. That's when I decided something had to change. If I stayed silent, I would lose everything that mattered. Not the money. I'd already proven I could make that. Not even the respect. I'd lived without it for 30 years. I would lose my identity, my legacy. My grandchildren would grow up thinking their grandfather was a man to be ashamed of. Let me show you what was really at stake. In my desk drawer, I keep receipts. Every tuition payment, every textbook, every dorm room deposit. Calliope's Northwestern education, $347,812. Michael's Northwestern degree plus his marketing certification, $231,590. Their graduate schools were extra. Calliope's Harvard MBA, $189,000. Michael's digital marketing boot camp in California, $47,000. Total educational investment, $815,402. Not one student loan between them, not one scholarship needed. Their father, the embarrassing immigrant with broken English, had paid it all. Cash, on time, with money earned installing drywall and cleaning office buildings after midnight. But there was more at stake than money. Their children, my grandchildren, were learning to be ashamed of their heritage. Calliope's daughter, Emma, 8 years old, had started correcting my pronunciation. "Grandpa, it's thee, not D. You sound funny." Michael's son, Jack, 5, refused to speak Polish with me anymore. "Daddy says I should focus on English." They were erasing me while I was still alive. The financial stakes were real too. My will currently left everything to Calliope and Michael equally. The rental properties, the business partnership with Antoni Wisniewski, my savings account with $847,000 from construction work they thought was just getting by. If I died tomorrow, they'd inherit over $3 million from a man they couldn't stand to introduce properly at parties. But the biggest stake was truth itself. I immigrated to America in 1992 with 2 PhDs and a plan. Poland was emerging from communism. My engineering degree from Warsaw University and economics PhD from London School of Economics were impressive credentials. I could have joined a consulting firm, taught at a university, worked for the government. Instead, I chose construction sites and cleaning crews. Why? Because I understood something my children never learned. In America, it's not about where you start, it's about what you build. And I wanted to build their futures with my own hands. Every dollar I earned scrubbing floors went into their college funds. Every weekend I spent installing kitchen cabinets was an investment in their professional options. Every time someone talked down to me because of my accent, I absorbed it so they would never have to. I made myself smaller so they could be bigger, but they saw my sacrifice as weakness, my strategy as failure, my love as embarrassment. The stakes crystallized when Calliope announced her promotion party. September 15th, Palmer House Hilton, Executive Conference Suite, 200 guests, McKinsey's senior partners, client executives, Chicago's business elite. "I'm sorry, Dad, but this isn't really a family event. It's more of a professional networking thing." "I understand." "Do you? Because last time at Michael's company picnic, you talked about the old country, and people stared." Maybe they were curious. They were uncomfortable. Robert's boss asked if you needed help with English classes. That's when I knew. If I let this continue, I wouldn't just lose my children's respect. I'd never have earned it in the first place. They would spend their entire lives running from a man who had built everything they achieved. My grandchildren would inherit shame instead of pride. My business partners would watch a family empire crumble because the next generation was too embarrassed to claim it. The immigrant community would lose another story of American success to silence and assimilation. No, not anymore. The confrontation came Wednesday evening, 2 days after my surgery. They arrived together at my apartment. Calliope in her BMW X5, $73,000 car, though she'd told friends it was a gift from Robert's family. Michael in his leased Audi, payments I'd quietly helped with for 2 years. I was sitting in my recliner, still wearing the hospital bracelet. Advocate, Illinois Masonic. Room 4, B17. Patient, Stefan Kowalski. Procedure, triple bypass. Family contacted, none available. "Dad, we need to talk." "Sit down." Calliope perched on the edge of my couch like she might need to escape quickly. Michael stood by the door. Neither removed their shoes, a Polish custom they'd abandoned years ago. "About the promotion party," Calliope started. "Congratulations." "Thank you, it's a big deal. Vice president level, $285,000 salary." I nodded. She was telling me like it was news, not knowing I'd helped calculate the taxes on her first corporate job 8 years ago. The thing is, it's very corporate, professional, you know? I know many things. Michael jumped in. What Calliope means is, maybe it's better if you sit this one out. Family celebrations are different from business events. I see. Do you? Calliope leaned forward. Because lately you've been... I don't know how to say this nicely. Say it however you want. You've been acting like you deserve something from us. Like we owe you something. The words hit like ice water. What do you think you owe me? Dad, don't start with the guilt trip. What guilt trip? The whole I sacrificed everything routine. We know you worked hard. We appreciate it. But that was your choice. My choice. Yes, you chose to come to America. You chose to have kids. You chose the jobs you took. We didn't ask you to sacrifice anything. Michael nodded. Right. And now we're successful. Shouldn't that make you happy? Isn't that what you wanted? What I wanted. I stood up slowly. The surgical incision still hurt, but not as much as this conversation. Tell me what you think I wanted. For us to do well, Calliope said. To fit in, to be American. Mission accomplished, right? Mission accomplished. So, why do you keep acting like we're disappointing you? Why the dramatic phone calls? Why the guilt about missing one medical appointment? Medical appointment. Surgery. Whatever. The point is you survived. You're fine. But you're making us feel terrible about having priorities. I walked to my desk drawer, pulled out a folder, set it on the coffee table between us. What's that? Michael asked. Receipts. Dad, we don't need to see your bills. Open it. Calliope reluctantly opened the folder. Her face went white. Northwestern University tuition receipt, fall semester 2010. Calliope Kowalski. Amount paid, $47,832. Payment method, cash. Harvard Business School invoice, spring 2014. Student, Calliope Kowalski. Balance due, $31,400. Status, paid in full. Michael's receipts were underneath. 4 years of undergraduate, digital marketing certification, professional development courses I'd paid for without him knowing. Dad, what is this? What you think you don't owe me? We never asked you to pay for this. You never asked because you never had to ask. Calliope was flipping through the papers. Her hands were shaking. This is over $800,000. $815,402. Where did this money come from? Working 3 jobs, construction during the day, cleaning offices at night, weekend home repairs. But you always said we were middle class. You said money was tight. Money was tight, because every dollar went to you. Michael sat down hard. Dad, we had no idea. You had every idea. You chose not to see. That's not fair. What's not fair? You can't drop this on us now and act like we're terrible people. Am I acting like you're terrible people? Yes, with all this proof and guilt and making us feel like we betrayed you somehow. Did you betray me? Calliope stood up. We don't have to justify our choices to you. What choices? Protecting our careers. Being professional, not wanting to explain why our father shows up to company events looking like... Like what? Like you just came from a construction site. Because I did come from a construction site. Exactly, and that's embarrassing. The words hung in the air like smoke. Embarrassing. Dad, don't twist this around. I'm not twisting anything. You said it was embarrassing that your father works construction. It's not the work. It's the way you present yourself. The accent, the clothes, the stories about the old country. I see. Do you? Because we've tried to help. We've offered to take you shopping. We've suggested English conversation classes. To fix me. To help you fit in better. I closed the folder, looked at my children, my Harvard MBA daughter, my marketing executive's son, both ashamed of the man who had built their dreams with his bare hands. I have something to tell you. What? Your promotion party. I'm coming. Dad, no, we already explained. I'm not asking permission. You can't just show up. Watch me. I walked to the door, opened it. Dad, where are you going? To buy a suit. They followed me into the hallway. What kind of suit? I smiled. For the first time in 2 days, I smiled. The kind that fits. The next few days, my children started noticing things they'd overlooked for 30 years. Thursday morning, Calliope called. Dad, about that folder, those receipts. I've been thinking. What have you been thinking? How did a construction worker save $800,000 for college tuition? Very carefully. That's not an answer. That's the only answer you get today. But I could hear the wheels turning in her mind. She was finally asking the right questions. That afternoon she came over with coffee and a mission. While I was in the bathroom, she did what she'd never done before. She looked around my apartment with curious eyes instead of embarrassed ones. She found my bookshelf. Not the English paperbacks I kept in the living room, thrillers and biographies, the kind of books a working man might read. The real bookshelf in my bedroom, the one with titles in Polish, German, Russian, Spanish. Advanced engineering texts, economic theory, business management books from the London School of Economics library. When I came out, she was holding a book. "Dad, this is in German." "Yes." "You read German?" "Sometimes. But this is about international monetary policy. This is graduate-level economics." "Is it?" She opened another book. My copy of Advanced Structural Engineering from Warsaw University. My name was written on the inside cover. In 1987. "Dad, this book is from before you came to America. I brought many books." "But why would a construction worker need books about structural engineering? Maybe construction workers know more than you think." She was quiet for a long time, turning pages filled with my notes. Calculations, diagrams, all in perfect English. "Your handwriting in these margins, it's not broken English." "No. It's academic English, like my MBA textbooks." I took the book gently from her hands. "Calliope, what do you think you know about your father?" "I thought I knew, but now." "Now?" "Now I'm starting to think I've never asked the right questions." That was the first seed. The second seed was planted Friday evening. Michael was helping me organize my financial documents for tax season, something I'd been putting off since the surgery. We were sorting through bank statements, investment reports, property management files. "Dad, what's this account?" "Kowalski-Wisniewski Construction." "Business account." "What kind of business?" "Construction business." "But you work for other companies. You don't own a company." I handed him a folder. Partnership agreement dated 1994. Stefan Kowalski, 50% owner. Antoni Wisniewski, 50% owner. Incorporated in Illinois. Current assets, $2.3 million. Michael stared at the papers for 5 full minutes. "Dad, you own a construction company?" "Half of one." "For 30 years? Time goes fast." "But you always said you worked for other people." "I work with other people, different thing. This says you're worth..." "Dad, this says the company is worth over $2 million. Paper value. Could be more, could be less." "You're a millionaire?" "I'm your father." But he kept reading. The partnership had grown from a 2-man operation to a company with 18 employees. We specialized in commercial renovation projects, hotels, office buildings, corporate headquarters. "Dad, some of these clients..." "I recognize these company names. These are Fortune 500 companies. Good companies pay well. But they also require... these contracts are complex. Insurance requirements, safety certifications, project management systems?" "Yes." "You'd need to understand corporate contracting, legal compliance, financial planning." "You think construction workers don't understand those things." I don't know what I think anymore." Michael found another folder. Insurance policies. Life insurance worth $1.5 million. Disability insurance. Professional liability coverage for business owners. "Dad, why do you have professional liability insurance?" "Protect the business." "From what?" "From mistakes that cost money. But construction workers don't usually what? Carry the same insurance as executives." That night I got texts from both children. Calliope: "Dad, I can't stop thinking about those books." "Will you tell me about them?" Michael: "We need to talk about your business. Why didn't you ever tell us?" I didn't respond to either text. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in 30 years. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out 2 documents I'd kept hidden since 1992. My Warsaw University diploma, Doctor of Engineering, 1987, magna cum laude. My London School of Economics certificate, Ph.D. in International Economics, 1991. I set them on my kitchen table, right where my children would see them Sunday evening when they came to drive me to Calliope's promotion party. Some seeds need time to grow. Others just need the right moment to bloom. Sunday, September 15th, 2024. Palmer House, Hilton, Chicago. 7:30 p.m. The executive conference suite was exactly what you'd expect from a McKinsey celebration. Crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River, servers in black ties carrying champagne that cost more per bottle than most people make in a day. 200 guests, senior partners, client executives, rising stars in consulting, finance, technology. The kind of crowd that judges you in the first 30 seconds and never changes their mind. I arrived wearing my best suit, The navy blue one I'd bought for Michael's college graduation. Pressed shirt, conservative tie, polished dress shoes. I looked like any other business professional, except for my weathered hands and the slight accent that 30 years in America hadn't completely erased. Calliope and Michael were by the bar, networking aggressively. Calliope in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Michael in a designer suit, checking his phone between conversations. They spotted me across the room. I watched their faces change. First surprise, they hadn't expected me to actually show up. Then anxiety. How would they handle introductions? Finally, resignation. I was here, so they'd have to manage the situation. Calliope approached first. "Dad, you came." I said I would. "You look nice." "Thank you." She glanced around the room, calculating social risks. "Listen, most of these people are colleagues, very corporate. Maybe we could just keep things light?" "How light?" "You know, simple introductions. Don't mention the construction work. Don't tell stories about Poland. Just blend in." Michael joined us, carrying 3 glasses of champagne. "Dad, great that you're here. This is Calliope's night, so let's just keep things focused on her achievement." I accepted the champagne. Expensive. French. I could tell from the taste. Something I'd learned during my economics studies in London. But my children didn't know that. "Where would you like me to stand?" "What do you mean?" Calliope asked. "Where should the embarrassing immigrant father stand so he doesn't interfere with your networking?" "Dad, don't be dramatic. I'm asking a practical question." Before they could answer, a woman approached our group. Tall, confident, carrying herself like someone used to being the most important person in any room. "Calliope, congratulations on the promotion." "Sarah, thank you so much for coming. This is my father, Stefan." Sarah extended her hand. "Nice to meet you, Stefan. Sarah Chen, senior partner at McKinsey." I shook her hand. "Pleasure to meet you." "And what do you do, Stefan?" Calliope tensed. Michael stepped closer, ready to manage the conversation. "I work in construction," I said. "Oh, how interesting. What kind of construction?" "Commercial renovation, mostly. Office buildings, hotels. That must be challenging work. Every job has its challenges." Sarah smiled politely, the kind of smile wealthy people give to service workers. "Well, you must be very proud of Calliope. She's got a brilliant mind for strategy." "She's very smart," I agreed. "I'm sure she gets it from her parents." "What about her mother?" "Her mother passed away 8 years ago." "I'm sorry for your loss. So you raised Calliope and Michael, is it on your own?" "I did what I could." "While working construction. That must have been difficult financially." Calliope jumped in. "We managed fine. Dad worked very hard." "I'm sure he did. Single parent, blue-collar job, putting kids through college. That's the American dream right there." She was being kind, but I could hear the condescension. The assumption that my children had overcome their circumstances instead of benefiting from them. That their success was despite their father, not because of him. More people joined our conversation. Robert Chen, Calliope's husband, a finance executive who'd always been polite but distant. Marcus Williams, a McKinsey client who owned a chain of luxury hotels. Patricia Morrison, head of HR. "Robert, how's married life treating you?" Marcus asked. "Great, thanks. Calliope keeps me on my toes professionally." "That's wonderful. And Stefan, you must enjoy seeing Calliope succeed in the corporate world." "Very much." "It's got to be a different world from construction sites." "Different, yes." Patricia leaned in. "Do you find it hard to relate to Calliope's work? Consulting is so intellectual." The words hit like a slap. Not just the assumption that construction work wasn't intellectual, but the implication that I couldn't understand my own daughter's career. Calliope and Michael exchanged glances. This was exactly what they'd been afraid of, their father being patronized by their colleagues, their success story being reframed as overcoming family limitations. "I try to understand what I can," I said quietly. "Well, the important thing is you're supportive," Sarah said. "Not every parent understands the demands of high-level consulting." "What kinds of demands?" I asked. "Oh, you know, complex problem solving. International economics, corporate strategy, very analytical work." "I see," Marcus jumped in. "Stefan, have you ever been to Europe? I imagine it's very different from Chicago." "I've been to Europe." "For vacation? For school?" "School?" This was it. The moment I'd been building toward for 30 years. My children watching nervously as their father was dissected by their professional peers, their colleagues making assumptions about intelligence, education, capability based on job titles and accents. Calliope put her hand on my arm. A warning. Don't say too much. Don't embarrass us. What kind of school? Patricia asked. I looked at my daughter, at my son, at their colleagues who were judging us all based on their limited understanding of what success looks like. I smiled. The kind that teaches you to appreciate hard work. The group laughed politely. Another safe answer from the simple construction worker who knew his place. But then something happened that nobody expected. A woman's voice behind me speaking in Polish. Stefan Kowalski, ci tu naprawdę tai? I turned around. Dr. Patricia Nowak, my cardiologist, still in her evening dress from some medical conference dinner, running late to Calliope's party. Patricia, I replied in Polish. Milocie Witziek. I can't believe it. How are you feeling after the surgery? The conversation around us had gone completely quiet. 20 people watching two professionals speak fluently in a foreign language they couldn't understand. Calliope looked mortified. This was exactly the kind of old country behavior that embarrassed her. But Dr. Nowak wasn't finished. Stefan, I was just telling my colleagues at the hospital about you, about how we studied together at Warsaw University. They couldn't believe my patient was the same Stefan Kowalski who published those papers on structural engineering economics. The champagne glass slipped from Calliope's hand. The conference suite went completely silent. Dr. Nowak switched to English, her voice carrying clearly across the now quiet room. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to introduce you to a very distinguished colleague. This is Dr. Stefan Kowalski, one of the most brilliant engineering economists I've ever known. 200 people turned to stare at me. The simple construction worker, the embarrassing immigrant father, the man with broken English and worn work boots. Calliope's face had gone white. Dr. Nowak, I think there might be some confusion. No confusion at all. Stefan and I were classmates at Warsaw University. He graduated magna cum laude with his engineering doctorate in 1987. Isn't that right, Stefan? I looked at my daughter, at my son, at their colleagues who had been patronizing me 5 minutes earlier. Yes, I said. That's correct. The silence stretched longer. Sarah Chen, the senior partner who had spoken to me like a service worker, was staring with her mouth slightly open. I'm sorry, she said slowly. Did you say Dr. Kowalski? Dr. Nowak smiled. Oh, yes. Stefan has a PhD in engineering from Warsaw University and another in international economics from London School of Economics. We used to joke that he was too smart for his own good. Marcus Williams, the hotel owner, stepped forward. Wait, Stefan, you have 2 doctoral degrees? I do. But you said you work in construction. I do that too. Robert Chen, my son-in-law, was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Dad, what is she talking about? Before I could answer, Dr. Nowak continued. Stefan, are you still partners with Antoni Wisniewski? The construction company you two built has quite a reputation in commercial development. We're still partners. Wonderful. You know, Stefan's company renovated the cardiac wing at Northwestern Memorial. Beautiful work. Very sophisticated project management. Patricia Morrison, the HR executive, looked confused. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble following this. Stefan, you own a construction company? Half of one. But earlier you said you work in construction. You didn't mention owning a company. You didn't ask if I owned one. Sarah Chen was recovering from her shock, but I could see her recalculating everything she'd assumed about me, about Calliope, about this entire conversation. Stefan, Dr. Kowalski, how long have you been in America? 32 years? And you've been working in construction this whole time? Yes. With 2 doctoral degrees. Yes. Why? I looked at Calliope and Michael. My children, who had been ashamed of my choices, my accent, my profession, my presence in their professional lives. Because my children needed to go to college. The room was absolutely still. I arrived in America in 1992 with excellent credentials and no connections. I could have spent years trying to get my degrees recognized, networking with academics, fighting for the respect my education deserved. Meanwhile, my children would have grown up. I paused, letting that sink in. Or I could start earning money immediately, good money, American money, and save every dollar for their futures. Marcus Williams leaned forward. How much money are we talking about? I smiled. Calliope's Northwestern education cost $347,000. Michael's degree cost $231,000. Calliope's Harvard MBA cost $189,000. Michael's certification programs, another $47,000. The numbers hung in the air like mathematics made real. $815,000 in educational expenses, paid in cash. No loans, no debt, no scholarships needed. Sarah Chen was doing the math in her head. That's incredible savings for a construction worker. It helps to understand economics. But Stefan, Patricia Morrison said, you could have made much more money with your degrees, academic positions, consulting work, corporate executive roles. How much more? Well, a PhD economist could easily make $200,000 to $300,000 per year. I nodded. Good estimate. But let me show you something interesting about economics. I pulled out my phone, opened my calculator app. Executive salary, $300,000 per year. After taxes, about $200,000. After living expenses appropriate to that social class, nice house, luxury car, private schools, country club memberships, maybe $100,000 in savings per year. Everyone was listening intently now. This was their world. Numbers, calculations, strategic thinking. Construction work, different calculation, 3 jobs, average $60,000 per year total. But I live in a simple apartment, drive an old car, buy clothes at discount stores, eat at home. Savings rate? $120,000 per year. Michael was staring at me. Dad, you saved more money working construction than you would have as an executive? Much more, because executives have expensive lifestyles. Construction workers can live simply. But the social status. Sarah Chen started. What social status? Well, the respect, the professional recognition, the networking opportunities. I had something better. What's that? I had a plan. Dr. Nowak was beaming. Stefan always was strategic. Even in university, he thought differently than the rest of us. Different how? Robert Chen asked. I looked at my son-in-law, the finance executive who had always treated me like a slightly embarrassing family obligation. Most people optimize for recognition. I optimized for results. What kind of results? My children graduated from elite universities with zero debt. They started their careers with complete financial freedom. They could take risks, choose jobs based on passion, build wealth from day one instead of paying off loans. I looked around the room at 200 successful professionals, most of whom probably still had student loan payments. How many people in this room are still paying for their education? A handful of uncomfortable shuffles. My children have never made a single loan payment for their degrees, not one. They started building wealth immediately after graduation. Marcus Williams nodded slowly. That's actually brilliant financial planning. It's also brilliant parenting, Patricia Morrison added. Calliope finally found her voice. Dad, why didn't you ever tell us? Tell you what? About your degrees, about the planning, about everything. I looked at my daughter. My brilliant, successful, ashamed daughter. You never asked. But we assumed. You assumed I was uneducated because I worked with my hands. You assumed I was poor because I lived simply. You assumed I was unsuccessful because I didn't seek status. The truth of it settled over the room like fog. You assumed wrong. Dr. Nowak spoke up again. Stefan, tell them about the languages. Languages? Stefan speaks 5 languages fluently. Polish, German, Russian, Spanish, and English. The English isn't broken at all. He just chooses simpler words around people who might not understand complexity. Sarah Chen looked stunned. You've been moderating your English? For 30 years. Why? Because people are more comfortable when they feel smarter than you. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at my children one more time. Any other questions? Calliope grabbed my arm. Dad, can we talk privately? We can talk right here, I said calmly. I'm done with private conversations about my identity. The crowd around us had grown. Word was spreading through the party that something extraordinary was happening. The construction worker father was actually a doctor. The embarrassing immigrant was actually a strategic genius. The broken English was actually a 30-year performance. Michael stepped closer. Dad, I don't understand. Why would you hide this from us? I didn't hide anything. You never asked about my education. You never asked about my business. You never asked about my plans. But you let us believe. I let you believe what you chose to believe. Robert Chen, my son-in-law, was shaking his head. This changes everything. Does it? Well, yes. I mean, you're not who we thought you were. I'm exactly who I've always been. You just decided who that was without asking me. Sarah Chen was still processing. Stefan, this is remarkable. Your strategic thinking, your sacrifice for your children's education. This is exactly the kind of long-term planning we try to teach our clients. Thank you. Have you ever considered consulting work? With your background in economics and your practical business experience, you'd be invaluable to companies trying to understand economic strategy. I smiled. I already do consulting work. You do? Kowalski Wisniewski Construction Consults on major commercial projects. Hotels, office buildings, corporate headquarters. We advise on structural economics, project financing, regulatory compliance. Marcus Williams leaned forward. Wait, your company worked on the Palmer House renovation 3 years ago, didn't it? We did. That was a $40 million project, incredibly complex. Multiple international contractors, union negotiations, historic preservation requirements. Very complex. And you managed that? Anthony and I managed it together. Marcus was staring at me with new eyes. Stefan, you renovated the hotel we're standing in. The realization rippled through the crowd. The simple construction worker hadn't just attended this elegant party. He had built the venue. Patricia Morrison stepped forward. Stefan, I have to ask, are you wealthy? Define wealthy. I mean financially. Your business, your investments, your savings. I looked at my children. They were waiting for an answer they'd never thought to ask for 30 years. My net worth is approximately $4.7 million. Calliope made a sound like she'd been punched. $4.7 million? The business is worth $2.3 million. My real estate portfolio is worth $1.8 million. Savings and investments, about $600,000. Michael sat down heavily in a nearby chair. Dad, you're a multi-millionaire? I'm your father. Sarah Chen was laughing, not mockingly, but with genuine admiration. Stefan, this is incredible. You built a fortune while pretending to be financially struggling. I wasn't pretending anything. I was being careful with money. But your children thought you were barely getting by. My children never asked to see my financial statements. Dr. Nowak smiled. Stefan was always like this, humble about his achievements. In university, he'd solve the most complex problems and then act like anyone could have done it. Not anyone, I said. Just anyone willing to work. I looked around the room at 200 successful professionals who were seeing me clearly for the first time. Which brings me to something I need to announce. Calliope looked panicked. Dad, what are you going to announce? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. Legal papers I'd had prepared that afternoon. Tomorrow morning, I'm establishing the Stefan Kowalski Educational Foundation. A foundation? For immigrant students who want to study engineering or economics in America. Students whose parents work with their hands to pay for their children's minds. I unfolded the papers. Initial funding. $500,000. The room was completely quiet. Where is that money coming from? Patricia Morrison asked. From my children's inheritance. Calliope and Michael both started talking at once. Dad, you can't... You didn't ask our permission. I held up my hand. For 30 years, I saved money for your futures. You used that money to build successful careers. Now you're embarrassed by the man who made it possible. We're not embarrassed. You introduced me as just a construction worker. You told your colleagues I was traveling instead of having surgery. You asked me not to tell stories about the old country. The truth hung between us like a bridge they couldn't cross. So I'm redirecting my investment. Instead of leaving money to children who are ashamed of how it was earned, I'm giving it to children who will be proud of what it represents. Dad, please, Calliope whispered. We can talk about this. We can. But first, you need to decide something. What? Do you want a father who is an embarrassing immigrant? Or do you want a father who is Dr. Stefan Kowalski? What's the difference? The embarrassing immigrant will leave you his money and fade quietly into the background of your successful lives. I paused. Dr. Stefan Kowalski expects to be introduced properly, respected for his achievements, included in family celebrations, and treated like the educated businessman he's always been. The choice was clear. Which father do you want? Calliope looked at Michael. Michael looked at Robert. Robert looked at the crowd of colleagues who were watching this family drama unfold in real time. Finally, Calliope spoke. We want our father, our real father. And who is that? Dr. Stefan Kowalski. I smiled and tore up the foundation papers. Good choice. The party transformed after that moment. Instead of the embarrassing immigrant father standing in the corner, I became the most interesting person in the room. Senior partners wanted to discuss international economics. Hotel executives asked about renovation strategies. Finance directors inquired about my investment philosophy. Dr. Nowak stayed close, translating whenever someone wanted to know more about my academic background or business experience. She seemed delighted to watch people discover who I really was. "Stefan," Sarah Chen said, "I have to ask, what was it like watching your children succeed while hiding your own achievements?" "Satisfying." "Weren't you frustrated? Didn't you want recognition?" "I had something better than recognition. I had results." Marcus Williams joined our conversation. "Stefan, your renovation work on this hotel was extraordinary. The structural engineering solutions for the historic preservation requirements were brilliant. Thank you. But you must have been tempted to tell your children about projects like this, major corporate contracts, sophisticated problem solving." I looked across the room at Calliope and Michael, who were deep in conversation by themselves. They weren't ready to hear it. And now they're asking different questions. Patricia Morrison approached with a group of HR executives. "Stefan, we've been discussing your story. This idea of choosing manual labor to maximize savings for your children's education. It's counterintuitive but financially brilliant. Simple mathematics. But it required incredible discipline. Living below your means for 30 years while building wealth and hiding your education. Discipline becomes habit." What was the hardest part? I thought for a moment. Watching my children become ashamed of me while I was building their futures. The honesty of it stopped the conversation. "But you never broke character," Sarah Chen observed. "You maintained the simple immigrant persona even when they hurt you. Breaking character would have defeated the purpose, which was teaching them that success isn't about status, it's about strategy." Across the room, I watched Calliope and Michael talking intently with Robert. I could see the realization settling in. Their father wasn't who they'd thought he was. Their assumptions had been wrong. Their embarrassment had been misplaced. More importantly, they were starting to understand the magnitude of what I'd sacrificed. Not just money, but recognition, respect, intellectual engagement, so they could have everything they'd achieved. Dr. Nowak touched my arm. "How do you think they're handling it?" "They're smart. They'll figure it out. And if they don't, then they'll learn what it means to earn respect instead of inheriting it." 20 minutes later, Calliope approached me. Her eyes were red. "Dad, can we start over?" "Start over? I mean, can we get to know who you really are? Who do you think I really am?" "I don't know anymore. That's the problem." Michael joined us. "Dad, we owe you an apology." "For what?" "For assuming, for not asking questions, for being embarrassed by you instead of curious about you." "Apology accepted." "Can you teach us?" Calliope asked. "Teach you what?" "How to think strategically, how to make long-term plans, how to build wealth while living simply." I smiled. "Those are good questions. Will you answer them?" "If you promise to ask them respectfully." "We promise." Robert approached hesitantly. "Stefan, I'd like to apologize too. I never took the time to get to know you properly." "Most people don't. Can I ask you something?" "Ask." "How did you know this plan would work? Hiding your education, working manual jobs, saving every dollar for 30 years? "I didn't know it would work." "But you did it anyway?" "I did it because the alternative was unacceptable." "Which was?" "Letting my children start their adult lives with debt and limitations." The conversation continued for another hour. Real questions, honest answers, the kind of discussion we should have been having for 30 years. When the party ended, Calliope and Michael drove me home. In the car, Calliope said something that surprised me. "Dad, I'm proud of you." "Why?" "Because you chose us over your ego, and because you taught us that respect has to be earned, not assumed." "Good lesson. Can we learn more?" "We'll see." 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my apartment when Calliope and Michael arrived together. They'd been coming by regularly since the party, asking questions about business, about economics, about the strategic thinking behind my 30-year plan. But today felt different. "Dad," Calliope said, "we have a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" Michael pulled out a folder. "We want to work with you." "Work with me how?" "Kowalski Wisniewski Construction is expanding into corporate consulting, strategic planning for major development projects, economic analysis for international clients." "Yes?" "We want to join the business, bring our corporate experience, our networks, our skills to complement your practical knowledge." I looked at the proposal they'd prepared. Professional charts, market analysis, growth projections, the kind of sophisticated business planning I'd taught myself 30 years ago, but had never shared with them. "Why?" Calliope answered first. "Because we finally understand what you built, and we want to help build more." Anne? And because we're tired of being ashamed of our success story instead of proud of it. Michael nodded. Dad, what you did for us was extraordinary. But what you built for yourself is even more impressive. We want to be part of that legacy. What about your careers? Calliope, you just made VP at McKinsey. I gave notice yesterday. Michael, you love your marketing job. I love building things more. I get that from you. I studied my children. For 30 years, they'd been running away from my world. Now they wanted to run toward it. There are conditions. Name them. First condition, we work as equals, not as father and children, as business partners. Agreed. Second condition, we tell the truth about our family story. No more hiding, no more shame, no more apologies for who we are or where we came from. Agreed. Third condition, we use our success to help other immigrant families build their own American dreams. The Scholarship Foundation? Among other things. Calliope smiled. Dad, we're ready to be proud of you. Good, because I've always been proud of you. Even when we were ashamed of you? Especially then, because you were smart enough to eventually figure out the truth. I signed the partnership agreement they'd prepared. Welcome to the family business. If you're watching this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Share your own family's success story, the sacrifices that built your dreams. Subscribe if this resonated with you. Sometimes the foundation you're standing on is stronger than you think.